joining us here at the 2020 kickoff for the Point in Time Count. I want to welcome all of you here to the Agnes Braz Community Center on Coggeshall Street and the offices of Positive Action Against Chemical Addiction, or PACA. I bring greetings in the name of our mayor, John Mitchell, who was unable to join us because of a prior commitment, and Patrick Sullivan, the director of our department, the Office of Housing and Community Development, who's in Washington this week. My name is Jennifer Clark. I'm the Deputy Director for Community Development. I want to thank you for joining us here at our annual Point in Time Count launch. This is our official kickoff that begins a very busy 24-hour period in our city. The Point in Time Count, or PIT, is a national effort to create a count of individuals and families experiencing homelessness. Today we join over 400 other communities across the country in undertaking this work so that we get an accurate count of information as to the number of people who are living in our shelters and those who may be living on our streets. Among its many responsibilities, the Office of Housing and Community Development administers the city's homeless programs and serves as a conduit for the federal funding that New Bedford receives. Our department also provides ongoing strategic and administrative support to the city's Homeless Service Providers Network, or the HSPN. That is our local continuum of care, a network. Today's Point in Time Count arises from both our need to fulfill federal obligations in conducting this census, and it's also a part of the important work of our local HSPN as we undertake efforts to prevent and end homelessness in our city. So in order to launch this effort this afternoon, I want to give you a little more detail as to why we're doing the count and what goes into it and how it's going to work later on. But first I want to ask Robert Frazier, I know he's here, Robert, to come on over and speak to you just for a couple minutes about the PIT count and what it means to him. Robert, thank you.
Afternoon, everybody. I just wanted to say that I was lucky enough to find the Veterans Transition House. I actually arrived there about 5.5 years ago, right from jail. So I guess I wasn't technically homeless because the county jail was my home. And I've been fortunate enough for the last 5 years not to have had the need to use or drink or do any mind-altering substances into my body. I used to attend this meeting like 4 or 5 days a week, and I just don't have the time anymore. And I wish I did because it was always one of my favorite meetings. I honestly believe that if you concentrate on today and don't project into tomorrow, this is just me, that today I'm clean. I have a few years under my belt, but I don't count the days anymore. A celebration is that I woke up this morning, and that if I'm able to wake up tomorrow morning, I'll get to celebrate again. And it's for people like Jen and the person that asked me to come here and speak for a few minutes that literally saved my life. Literally, not, they introduced me to this doctor, or they showed me a way to this hospital. They pulled me in, and I gained their trust, and vice versa. And I don't really have any explanation as to how it happened. I lost the desire, and I still don't really have the desire to use anymore. And I think that led directly to my homelessness, which I suffered from chronically. I'm a veteran, which was, a community which is outside of society. They didn't teach me anything about coming back into civilian life. And I think it would be great if they would take a long, hard look and maybe like 90 days or so before you get out to start teaching these guys what to expect when you hit the real world. It's tough. It's a tough place. And I was just a kid, and I ran with that, and I blamed everybody I possibly could, even people I didn't know I blamed. So if I have any kind of advice, it's to stick to the walls of these kind of places. Stick here until you stick. You know what I mean? Don't come and tear away, or the first opportunity you get, go and use again. I don't act impulsively anymore. I try and see down the road what the worst possible thing that can happen to me is, and I already know it. So, insanity is what insanity is. And I realize that I'll never be cured, but for today, just for today. I'm clean, I'm sober, I quit smoking cigarettes, I slowed down on my coffee. Not to say that that's any better or worse than anybody else, but for me, that's huge. And it's odd because I don't see any familiar faces here, and it hasn't been that long. That's how fast and how often people go out and they don't come back. Some people never even lived through this. I feel very fortunate, very blessed. Jen, thank you for giving me this time. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you, Jen. Thank you for having me.
Well, the programs that Robert just mentioned and the work that's being done is critical. And all of that requires funding, and it requires funding from the federal government. And we're doing this count to show how we are actually strategically working for the better. So, as Robert has implied by his comments, everyone does count. Robert counts, we all count. And by conducting one like this in one 24-hour period, we get a very good snapshot with important data. This data helps us to understand the number and characteristics of persons who are experiencing homelessness right now. They help us to find out not just how many people are homeless, but who is homeless, why they're experiencing homelessness, while shedding light on how we can end homelessness in New Bedford. Point-in-time numbers we collect are used to develop strategic measures to help those in the midst of a homeless crisis and to help those for whom we can prevent homelessness. The U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, or HUD, requires all of these continuums of care to undertake this work. Because New Bedford is one of these continuums, we're required to conduct this sheltered count as well as an unsheltered count as a condition of the funding that we receive. Our count is an important metric for measuring our local progress toward preventing and ending homelessness, and what we learn becomes part of those national metrics as well. So now we've talked about why we do this. I want to tell you a little bit about how we do it. Beginning at 1 o'clock today and running through 1 o'clock tomorrow, January 30th, the city's HSPN will conduct the city's annual pit count. It's a combination of things. We have volunteers who will conduct an unsheltered count of people throughout the city. Teams of volunteers will gather following this kickoff to begin that count work. Volunteers who encountered unsheltered persons will offer to assist them in whatever way possible, either by bringing them into shelter directly or offering them what they might need. Anything from a backpack with warm clothing and toiletries to bus passes and small gift cards for food. Folks who are unsheltered will also be provided with a street sheet filled with resources and information to help them stabilize and to point them in the right direction to get folks into housing. Tonight, our agencies will rely on their professional staff to conduct a count of people who are already sheltered within their walls, in emergency shelters and transitional housing programs. In addition to those two things, we also have a resource event. Volunteers and agencies located here in this building will conduct that event until 8 o'clock tonight. People who are unsheltered can come in and find a range of services, including a wonderful hot meal later on this afternoon, haircuts, agency services and supports, flu shots, blood pressure screening, and opportunities for shelter. The count of those unsheltered individuals currently residing on the streets and in places that are not meant for human habitation also happen here in this building, as well as on the streets and targeted areas throughout the city. So again, this year, our office has had the great privilege of coordinating these activities with the outstanding work of this year's PIT committee. It's a group of 15 super dedicated individuals from the HSPN who've been meeting every single week since November to ensure the success of this day and this count. Team leaders in this effort have included Leslie Poulin and Dina Mello, both of whom are from First Citizens Federal Credit Union, and they've taken on everything from recruitment to scheduling related to all things volunteers. Lauren Lemieux, an independent community member, has overseen a heroic effort on donations. You would not believe how generous our community is. and the ability to give and to make a change in people's lives, Lauren has done a heroic job in coordinating all of that. Jamie Casey from PACA and Wendy Blues from Southeast Family Services, both of who have overseen this entire resource event. We're grateful to all of the work that they've put into coordinating that. Danielle Brown and her team from Stepping Stone, they conduct street outreach throughout the year, every single day in and day out. They have been invaluable in the overall planning efforts for this pit count. Joe Maya from our office, who's assisted with training, mapping, and survey data. He'll be the guy crunching these numbers afterwards. And the Reverend David Lima, our immediate past chair of the HSPN, who's headed up our public outreach efforts with the media and continues to share with us the importance of data, understanding numbers, and that every single number is a human life and how we value that. So we're grateful to him. These are just a few members of our team. As I look out, I see other folks, Maria Alice from Seven Hills. We have so many people who have done so much, and all of this is an incredible coordinated team effort. You don't see that in all continuums. We don't see that everywhere, but in New Bedford, we are blessed with such commitment and dedication to this work. Before continuing, I just want to introduce you to Michael Ramundo. I want to ask you to come over, Michael, and I'm just going to give you an opportunity to speak for a few minutes about the importance of this count. Thank you. Let me just grab this.
Thank you. My name is Michael Ramundo. 3 months ago, I was out here on the streets, living on the streets. I was drinking, was doing drugs, and I had nowhere to go, nothing at all to my name. I was living on the railroad tracks in a tent at an event. As time went on, I realized when it got colder, I wasn't going to be able to survive out here. So I picked up and I moved off into the called the Veterans Transition Home where I'm currently staying now. They've helped me greatly. While I was out here, I got to know quite a few people. There's a lot of people that probably never will get the chance to go to these groups and get stable living and have a place to live and a warm place to live. There's people out there that are dying because they're out in the streets, and a few friends of mine I've seen die and heard about them dying. And it's sad because there's plenty of stuff out here to help us get better and not be out on the streets. There's the food truck that comes all over New Bedford to feed the homeless. Homeless people go out there, they have clothes, they have food. Anchor Ministries, they have food and a Bible study for people. Seven Hills, who helped me greatly and always encouraged me to try to get better and go to a program and stuff like that. They have coffee in the morning, they have food. I would go to the food banks and grab as much food as I can and bring it back, and Seven Hills would take what was left over at the end and make food for the homeless. It's sad to have so many homeless people, and then there's a way out there. They just need to see that they count. They mean something to everybody. Even though you're homeless, you know, there's plenty of people out there to help, and they just need to see that there's help out there so that they can get off the streets and better their lives just as I'm doing. Thank you.
Thank you again, Michael. Those were great words. And as he reminds us, everyone counts. And you can take that count in many different ways, but we all count. And every person living on the streets, every person in a shelter counts. Having now had a quick overview about the pit count and heard from Robert and Michael both, I'd like to introduce you to our final speaker, Josh Amaral, who is the newly elected chair of the Homeless Service Provider Network, and in his spare time serves as the assistant director of PACE. Josh?
Hi everybody, a great day today. It's a lot better than it was last year. If you remember, it was chillingly cold. So hopefully that helps us have a really successful day today. I want to thank Jen and her team at the Office of Housing and Community Development for all the work that they do in putting this event together, as well as all the volunteers that go toward making this event possible. For all the various reasons stated already today, counting the unsheltered folks here in the community over the next 24 hours is critical, a critical step in providing the services that the agencies who are part of the Homeless Service Providers Network provide in our city. It's worth mentioning that this, one-off, one-day effort is, for all the effort put into it, really only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the services that are provided here in the city for our folks that are in need. There are extraordinary efforts made every single day by all the agencies across the city to make sure that everybody is getting what they need to meet their daily needs. I'll also say that while the focus today is obviously on homelessness and specifically unsheltered homelessness, we as a network are dedicated to preventing homelessness and providing resources that allow folks, like the resources provided here today at PACA, for example. We're encouraging people to come here and get those services when we find them out in the community, and people will know about it. We've spread the word, but you don't have to be homeless necessarily to come and take advantage of the services. Come and learn about what's available to you so we can prevent that crisis rather than trying to fix it on the back end. So on the behalf of the Homeless Service Providers Network, PACE, and a lot of other entities here in the city, a heartfelt thanks to all the volunteers who make this possible. It really, they say it takes a village, it takes a city in this case, and I'm proud to be associated with this group and really happy to see such a great turnout today and hoping for a successful effort tonight. Thank you.
Okay, we're grateful to many people who have made this year's Pit Count a reality, and our thanks especially, in addition to the folks we mentioned before, go to Chief Cadero and his officers of the New Bedford Police Department, particularly Officer Melissa Betchelder, who has already been providing assistance in the planning of the count and has going to be continuing to be a resource throughout the day with us. Of course, a big thanks also goes out to Carl Alves and his staff and team at PACA for opening their doors once again, both for our volunteer training session last week and as serving as a home base today and tomorrow morning. And finally, none of this would be possible without the generosity of so many volunteers. This year we have over 60 volunteers from the community who have stepped forward to help out, along with many individuals, agencies, and corporate donors who have tirelessly and generously given of themselves to ensure a meaningful pit count and the kinds of authentic connections with those in our community who are facing challenges. In particularly, we want to thank especially Nuevo Mundo Churrascaria and Sunrise Bakery for donating some amazing food later on today for those whom we are serving. So just to conclude, we are grateful to all of these people individually and collectively for their great work in ensuring the success of this year's count. Excuse me. I got so close to not coughing. And we are grateful to all of you for your support and continued encouragement. So now, without further delay, I want to thank you all for joining us today, for standing out here in the cold and listening to me prattle on as we launch at this moment our point-in-time count for 2020. Let us begin.